Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Story Nook. Today, we are going to be reading some wonderful stories from the r/revenge subreddits, from petty revenge, for revenge, and so on. So go ahead and grab your tea, your coffee, your water, whatever it is you want to drink, and join me as we read some revenge stories. Our first story today comes from r/petty revenge and was posted by user PJ Sherry. I'm sorry, you are right and I am wrong. Let me fix this. Happened this morning. First off, I started off in the wrong. I got in the 15 items or less line and hadn't counted the number of items my adult daughter had added to my cart, which included items added at the cash register. In total, 19 items. There was no one behind me as the cashier was starting. At this time, a lady walks up behind me and starts complaining loudly to her companion about people in line with a million items. I immediately turned around and told, "That's me." I put a divider down behind my items and moved the items my daughter added to my basket behind it. I then told my daughter that since we had too many, she would have. Meanwhile, I am having a pleasant conversation with the checker, who only irritated the lady behind me more. My items were rung up and I paid for them with my credit card. The checker then rang up my daughter's items, placing them into bags. I told the clerk I would purchase those items for my daughter. I then produced the same credit card and paid for her items, thanked the cashier, and left. Meanwhile, the lady behind me is sputtering. And I think that's sometimes you do indeed get in the wrong line. And it is kind of funny, like, that lady's just complaining about everything. She's just in one of those moods where she's just like, I want to complain and bitch about everything. And she's just like, you know what, let me just make this take just a teensy-wincy bit longer. And I think that's hilarious. So our next story is going to be from the regular revenge subreddit and is posted by user Felipe Meyer. We were best friends. Now he has no friends, no money, and no phone. Kinda. So I had this business partner, longtime friend, like a brother to me, most trusted person in my life, aside from my wife and daughter, till I had the stupid idea to open a business with him. And yes, it was definitely a stupid idea. People warned me against it. I myself was kind of aware of the risk and obvious consequences. But we talked about it for so long that it would ruin the friendship if I did not include him on my plans. So I left my job to open my own design school. The focus would be on comic book making, which I considered a specialty of mine, having even won a national award as co-author, I admit, for one of my publications. The deal was pretty simple. At first I would teach writing. He would teach drawing. He never had published anything, but he had the raw talent for art, and I always pushed him to practice again, which he had stopped due to a lot of insecurities. Considering our work backgrounds, he has always worked with sales, and I was a teacher for most of the last decade. We also divided the administrative and mundane task. He was director of sales, responsible for bringing in students, close deals, and take care of bills. I was the teaching director, responsible for finding associated teachers. Our business model involved bringing teachers as sort of partners, in control of their own courses and paying us a fee in exchange for the place, the support, and the sales effort. The marketing I forgot my morning alarms were still on. I will cut that out in post. The marketing and the overall quality of the teaching structure. We reached out to a lot of fairs, cons, and art shows so we could find some potential students. In exchange, we gave free workshops and panels. It was then that things started to go south. After a particularly stressful panel about independent comic authors, we started a Q&A session, and someone asked about the relevance of a comic book school in such a small market. The question was directed at me, and being my longtime dream, my planning, even my award, I started to recall my previous experiences both on teaching and on comic publishing, till the part of the story where I invited my best friend to share the dream. He was livid. Suddenly, he took the mic and started rambling about how I made it sound like it was all my idea, which was, but whatever, and made very public his opinion that I never gave him enough credit. I think I made a joke, tried to dismiss his rant as a playful prank between good friends, and acknowledged his many contributions to the venture, and I'd do it anyway if he had just let me finish my damn story. I tried to talk to him later about what had happened, but he again insisted I was always dismissing his ideas and leaving him out of things. I apologized for making him feel this way, and said it was never my intention to dismiss him or his ideas. After this, I started putting the friendship first and the business second. He would come up with these absurd, most idiotic ideas, and I would let him pursue it so he would feel included, even though I knew said idea would massively blow up in our faces. It was that, or hear him complain that I thought only my ideas were worthy of something. This continued for a while, and I spent most of the time on damage control, which as a consequence took me away from some of my other responsibilities. Unsurprisingly, the business suffered. No shit. This is why I never go into business with friends but also, if you own a business, you can't put your friendship with your business partner before your business. It's not gonna work. Never ever. When we both left our jobs to become entrepreneurs, I warned him that it would be a long and a hard road. This wasn't my first company, not even my second, proving that I'm really stubborn and don't know when to quit. And I did not expect to turn a profit for at least the first year. I told him we would struggle on a month-to-month basis, and for that reason I had secured some funds to keep me afloat in the meantime and was counting on some freelance work here and there to make ends meet. The fact that I lived on my own house and did not pay rent was an additional blessing. He actually was in a similar situation, living on a small apartment owned by his mother and having very few bills to pay. Also, he lived all by himself, while I had to support a wife and daughter. A little side story here. His mom has been used as a scapegoat by her own sister some years before, when they opened together a factory to produce school and company uniforms. The sister was actually the brains behind the occupation. My friend's mom basically just contributed with her reputation and good credit. Later, when the sister closed down the factory, thinking, wrongly of course, that it would excuse her from paying former employees and many, many lawsuits that came after, she actually took the precaution of first transferring all her assets to her children, not giving the courtesy of suggesting my friend's mom should do the same. So my friend's mom had her assets frozen, while her sister, who actually managed the business, kept everything she owned and untouched. And by some red tape, shenanigans between different states, the government had never found out about the friend's apartment, owned by his mom, but on a different city and different state. So after a few months into this venture, my friend/partner told me he would move back to his mom's and put his apartment for leasing, so he would have an income source until the school could turn profit. solid plan. I helped with renovations, painted his whole apartment all by myself. He proved terrible at it. Even paid half the cost of moving since some of his furniture were being donated to our school. However, at the worst timing possible, the government found out about the apartment. It didn't really surprise me. It should have happened much earlier, and many times I had recommended that his mom transfer the title to her children before it was too late. According to the law, the apartment cannot be seized if someone from the family uses it as their main address. Since my friend did not have a steady income now and his sister was fresh out of university with a law degree and a job on a firm, it was decided that she would move in and take care of maintaining the property. This only added to my friend's many other insecurities and rejection complex, and he started blaming me for losing his apartment to his sister. A few days later, he actually put it into words, saying that he no longer saw us as friends. I told him the sentiment was one-sided. Things just got worse from there. He had the habit of going to the school every single day by foot, walking a few miles between his mom's house and our commercial spot downtown. I did not have that option, since I live on the other side of the city, did not drive, and depend on sporadic buses to move around. And since we hadn't classes every single day, I simply didn't see the point in wasting the time and the money. When he told you he felt y'all were no longer friends, sure, that sentiment can be one-sided. You can still feel like you're friends. But when someone says, hey, I no longer feel like we're friends, that's pretty much the end of your friendship completely. So, yeah. So, don't take me wrong, it was a waste. We worked our asses off to collect a bunch of contacts from possible students, and all that was expected of our director of sales was for him to pick up the phone and invite these people to come and visit the school. Once everyone saw our place, our closing numbers went through the roof. But instead, day after day, he would crank up the AC, plug in his computer on the classroom TV, and alternate between YouTube and Netflix until the time he considered the end of his shift, and then would preach about how I was not as invested in the business as him because I wasn't there every day. Find me some students and you'll see me every day, I would say. We actually managed to eventually start 2 full classes of our extended comics course, which would pay a lot more than the usual short-term classes where most of the money went to the associated teachers. All of this was still going in accord to my initial time projection. Things were beginning to turn around, except that my friend got a new girlfriend. He was always too intense on his relationships, and this time wasn't any different. He constantly complained about not having what me and my wife have, even after we reminded him that we too had our problems, and what we do have, and he envied, was the result of 20 years together, with as many lows as highs. He had never got over his ex-girlfriend, who he proposed to and never got an answer, and all his relationships after that fell into one of 2 categories. He either cheated on them, which, since they weren't marriage material, or he pursued them too intensely, in which case they were and ended up scaring them away. Oh, MM means marriage material, which I think is a stupid way to judge a partner. Like, why get with someone if you don't think this is someone you can commit to? But at the same time, this dude has issues and needs to work on himself. Once he works on himself, maybe then he can start dating again, because dating someone is not going to fix what all is going on with him. We were participating in the local annual comic convention and had secured a big booth to show off the school and gather new contacts. We printed posters with arts from some of our teachers, a small sketchbook showcasing our in-house talent, and even reprinted some of our old indie comics so we would have more merch to offer. The plan was to make our art travel and get known by many people. But the effing idiot put in his head that he could make enough profit to pay our bills for the month and keep some change. So everything that should be offered cheap to make it travel fast suddenly got new prices, and our booth turned into a desert. We actually made some money, mostly because I offered discounts and threw some freebies to potential customers. But every time I did this, he would give me an earful and say that I couldn't be trusted to manage the booth. I did my better sales when he went away to check on other booths anyway. Our profit actually paid for his night out with the soon-to-be girlfriend. He spent all the money we got in the first day on drinks for him and an old acquaintance that was visiting from another state. He was ashamed of it the next day, but seeing how happy he was having turned the acquaintance into something more, and apparently losing a big stick that had been living on his ass, I just brushed it off and congratulated him. I told him, "It's your money too, and you should be able to spend it on nice things every now and then. I know this tale is getting bigger and bigger, and there's no sign of revenge yet, but stick with me. All this is important to comprehend what comes next." I'm sure, because you gotta have a good reason, but your friend's a dick and he's not really a good friend. So suddenly, my partner had a girlfriend from another state. My birthday came and we made a big dinner, as was our tradition, and he spent most of the night outside, on the street, talking to her on the phone. When he came back, he was an asshole to my daughter and some other guests, and when people started talking politics, almost everyone in our circle tend to be liberal and left-thinking, he started to distort things and jokes I said when we were alone to make me look racist and misogynistic. A quick curiosity, I've been out of the closet most of my life as bisexual, and a few years after these events, I actually came out as non-binary. A few days later, he told he always had this dream of moving to another city. If you guessed the city where his girlfriend lived, you guessed right. And pursued a career in publishing. But I never told anyone about it. Then he decided that life was too short to carry baggage around and started putting his huge comic book collection for sale. He first made it sound like he was pursuing a life without attachments, but it soon became clear he was both getting rid of anything that could slow him down while also making money to move away. As a good friend, I tried to talk him down and make him think twice about all these sudden decisions he was making, and told him repeatedly that he could regret some of them. I was praying to deaf ears. He loved those comics, but couldn't wait to get rid of it all. He finally came up with a good idea and proposed an event, putting his collection sale as a way of bringing people to visit the school and get to know our classes. He forgot to tell that he would not put any effort on the second part, so the event was a bust. At least regarding new possible clients, he actually sold a few rare TVBs and got enough money for a quick trip to see his girlfriend on the following weekend. I offered to take charge of the next event so I could try and advertise to school while he focused on his sales. And this time he decided not to give a damn on any front. I sold a few of the comics to the very few people who attended the school event, and when I went to check the books with him, he only appeared when we were almost closing and said, "Keep it, pretend it's your commission." But nothing prepared for what came next. We had a weekly class, his on drawing, mine on writing. Some of our students went to both classes, but they were taught independently. His classes started a couple months earlier, while we tried to gather more students to mine in order to make it profitable. As a consequence, his class was scheduled to conclude earlier, but our business plan anticipated this kind of situation when we offered our students a more advanced course to keep them with us. Instead, when his class got near the end, he called me. "So I spoke with our real estate agent, and we can move out at such date if we pay these amounts as fine." "Wait, what? We still have a few months of our leasing, and our class won't finish for another 3 months." "Bad for you. Mine ends next month, so I already gave him notice." He probably thought it was that easy, but it wasn't. We actually had to put it in writing any desire to end the contract early, and only then the 30 days notice started counting. So to avoid any more useless arguing, I complied. The real estate agency usually sent bills and notifications only addressed to me, probably to shorten communications, but many times he complained and said that it looked like only my name was on the lease. Man, it was effing bills. Next, he would complain the birds never rapped over him. I came by the school while he was with his students and left a letter of intention on his table, properly signed, and reminded him that he had to sign it too and drop it at the agency. The air was heavy, and I felt that probably would be the last time we spoke face to face. Call me naive or stubborn, but I really hoped at this point we could get over everything and just go back to being best buddies. Probably not. His class ended and I tried to offer the students the second course. I secured a meeting room on a co-working space so I could finish my own class and host the advanced class. This way we would have enough money to renovate the school and pay the last bills from before moving out. By law, we were required to undo any modifications and return the property on its original state, or we had to pay the agency's own estimated cost, which traditionally is much more expensive than renovating on your own. I quickly learned that my friend approached every single one of his students and asked them to pay on credit any remained amount of their tuition fees, and because of it, most wouldn't be able to afford the advanced class. I called my partner and asked what was made of this money since last rent and bills weren't paid and our business account had no balance. He took a great offense of my inquiry and said he wouldn't even waste his time answering it, and in fact, never did. I was able to speed up things with my class, making double appointments with them each week, and got them to agree to some online tutoring in exchange for us finishing schedule early. This reduced the amount I would have to pay for the new place, but the new class was still essential if we expected to pay all taxes, fines, and fees without having to use our own money. So I went out and found some new students. I asked him how we should divide the school's assets, but he said he wanted nothing but the TV and some other equipment bought on her sister's credit card, which he intended to sell. I could have just loaded the moving truck with everything I wanted, but instead I tried to be considerate and left behind half of everything. I even bought paint cans and some painting equipment so we could do renovations together. When I brought this up, he said, "Go ahead, if I feel like it, I'll join you." I painted one wall and said, "Fuck it, I'm done," and I finally had enough. In our country, renting requires some payment guarantee. Most of the time, this is achieved by including someone on the contract who vouches for or has enough income to be held responsible in case you don't pay. Sorry if this is news to anyone, but I have no idea how similar or different renting is between here and USA. In our case, this person was his mother. I loved her like a second mom and never purposely would hurt her, but she ended up getting caught on the crossfire. Me and my friend had not talked for weeks. Suddenly, he redirects one of her messages to me. "The real estate agent is asking about this month's rent," it said. He answered below, "OP will take care of it." It was the last straw. I started recording an audio message with every intention of sounding calm and stable, but a few seconds in, I was already screaming and putting out every little thing that I've kept to myself for the last 6 or 7 months. Every hope I had of becoming friends again were dead and buried. I asked again about the missing money, saying how strange it is that he suddenly had money to make recurrent trips to see his girlfriends while our bills weren't being paid. I made it clear that I would not take care of anything and reminded him that it was his mom's ass on the line and she already had enough trouble and debt. This wasn't the revenge, by the way, nor what comes next. He actually called a few weeks later and said real estate agency wants to charge us an extra month. The imbecile had forgotten to deliver our letter of intentions. He eventually did it 28 days later, and then he failed to move his things out within the 30 subsequent days, and never occurred to him in the meantime how much of renovations I had made by myself So he was charged the equivalent to 3 months' rent in additional fees and expected us to split the amount for his mistake. I laughed and hung up. The actual revenge came a lot later. I failed to make a payment on time to the co-working space, and they emailed me asking when I could fix this. Immediately, I got a message from my former partner giving me a hard time for being irresponsible and for making our company look bad. That was how I found out that he still had access to our business accounts, even after I changed all passwords and blocked him. He made it clear he wanted nothing to do with the company, but I still had students to attend to. I'm no expert on these things, but after looking around a bit, it became clear that his phone was still logged into our company's account, and even the changing of password couldn't prevent him from receiving emails and notifications. So I dug a little more to find a way to disconnect it remotely from the account. What I did find was an option to erase all his phone data in case of robbery, which I promptly activated. I had no idea what was the end result or the size of the damage, but judging by the angry messages he left me later from his sister's phone, I'm guessing it was pretty big. And that was my revenge. By the way, not long after he got dumped, the girlfriend got really scared with how fast he wanted things to go, already talking about moving in, etc. It did not help that he gave her a commitment ring, and it was exactly the same ring he had used to propose to his ex. I actually kept in touch with her, and we even go out to drinks whenever I travel to our cities. We never talk about him. I talked to his mom and sister a few times after everything happened. They told me he maxed out all his credit cards and had to take a bunch of loans, and nobody knew how long it would take him to settle all his debts. Some mutual friends stopped talking to me. I decided I wouldn't touch the subject unless someone came to me and asked. Everyone who did it now is back again in good terms with me. Most stopped talking to him after hearing my side. I never asked for anybody to do this. Edit/TLDR, my best friend tried to screw me on our joint business venture, so I pretty much bankrupted him by making him pay for our real estate agency fees and fines, so I remotely erased all the data on his phone. Which I think is fucking hilarious and a great way to handle things. So thank you for joining me on this episode of Story Nook and reading these pro-revenge stories with me. So, yeah, have a wonderful day, have a wonderful weekend. Remember to stay hydrated, stay safe, and yeah, all of that. Bye-bye!